What's good, creative fam? I'm Just Be Wise, and today we're gonna walk through the Sony A7 III settings and get you up and running with the best possible settings for photo and video. Let's get it. All right, so first up, we're gonna talk about the photo settings first off the bat. Now, if you plan on doing a lot of editing to your photos, RAW is probably gonna be the best file format for you because when you shoot RAW, it gives you far more data to work with when editing. But if you plan on doing very minimal editing, then JPEG is the way to go. In this case, you should go ahead and change your file format to JPEG, and to get the best quality, you want to change it to X-Fine and then make sure that your image size is L20. Now, if you do have an issue with file format sizing or anything like that, you don't have a lot of storage, then you can do a little bit less, but I think going from RAW to JPEG saves you a lot of space, so you don't have to worry about that. Oh, but if you do choose to stay in RAW, I would say choose the file format type of uncompressed. Just gives you the best quality. All right, next up, we're gonna talk about aspect ratio. Now, aspect ratio is 100% personal preference. It doesn't really matter. So for me, since I typically shoot everything as a filmmaker first, I will shoot a lot of my photos in 16:9. But it doesn't really matter, so shoot whatever you like. Now, if you haven't heard of the APS-c mode, it's mainly here so that if you have lenses that are made for a crop sensor camera, you can still use them. But it's also a great way for you to get a little bit more range on the lenses that you already do have. So if you just need a little bit more punch in, go ahead and use this APS-c mode. Now, we can spend a bunch of time talking about autofocus, and I probably will in a separate video, but as for right now, just to get you up and running, I would suggest that you have priority set at balance and use your focus area as wide. Also, turn the AF illuminator off. This thing is just annoying and you don't really need it. Turn it off. As for white balance, I typically, when I'm shooting photos, will leave white balance in auto. It just makes my life a lot easier. However, do not do this when you're shooting video. The main reason is because if the lighting shifts or anything changes, the camera is gonna shift your colors around as well. And this is gonna be a major hassle to deal with in post. So trust me, when shooting video, just don't leave it in auto. Now, me personally, I don't use a lot of the creative styles, mostly because anything I wanna do creatively, I wanna do in my edit in post. But if you're just looking for something to do quickly and you wanna change it up, then there's nothing wrong with using these. So I would say play around with them and see what you like. Okay, now picture profiles is another topic that I can talk about for an extended period of time. And I will in another video, but for now, for the sake of brevity, here's the deal. One, with photos, I don't use any picture profile at all. It works fine. But when I'm shooting video, I typically will use what I'm showing you on screen right now as my main picture profile. So I hope that helps for now. I'll go more in depth on it on another video. Speaking of video, I think that's a great segue for us to go over and talk about some of the video stuff. Now let's start off with the exposure modes. Now, there are a few different exposure modes, but I suggest for you to use the manual exposure over the others, mostly because what you want is to have complete control over what's happening in your camera. Remember, you're the artist and the camera is your paintbrush. So you don't want the paintbrush to make the decisions for you, right? So let's go ahead and skip through all of those and just go ahead and shoot manual. You can do this. Okay, buckle up, because there's a lot to cover here. We're gonna talk about the video file formats. So before we even can start talking about the settings, we need to talk about the memory card that you're using. Now, to record the highest possible quality, you need to have an SD card that is either a UHS-1U3 or UHS-2U3. If you don't have either of these cards, don't worry, your boy got you. You can find exactly what you need in a link in the description below, and I'll have the different cards listed out there. But in the meantime, you can still get very good quality video on the lower grade cards, and I'll show you how right now. First, let's talk about filming in 4K. Now, to film in 4K, you'll need to change your format to XAVCS 4K, or if you know me from the A7 II videos, we just call it the X Max. Now we got X Max 4K. So let's go ahead and change that to X Max 4K. Next, we'll head down to the recording settings. Now, you can change your frame rate based off of what you like, and it really depends on what you like the most. So if you want to shoot in 24, shoot in 24. If you want to shoot in 30, shoot in 30. Don't let anybody judge you. Do what you want to do. But now here's where things can get different because of your card. If you have a U3 card, then you can film in the highest quality possible, which is at 100 megabits per second. But if you don't worry, 60 megabits per second is still very good. So you can still get decent quality. Now, let's go over the 1080p options and we'll head back up to the file format. You still want to choose the X Max, but this time it's going to be HD. Now 1080p, you can film in 24, 30, 60, and even 120 frames per second. With all of these different options, you can do anything whether you have the U3 card or not. The only difference is in the 120, you can also shoot at 100 megabits per second, like we said before. Okay, also just want to give you a quick note with the shooting in 120 frames per second, you can't actually record any proxies if you're shooting in this. If you normally don't shoot proxies, don't worry. And also there is a bit of a crop when you film in 120. So just keep that in mind when you're doing all of that. Now, if you do end up having any additional questions about filming in these different higher frame rates, let me know in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. All right, let's talk about the S&Q settings, also known as slow and quick. Now, first, what you want to do is set your recording settings to whatever the base frame rate is that you are normally shooting in. So like we said before, if you shoot in 24, then you want to set it to 24. If you shoot in 30, then you want to set it to 30. Now that you set your frame rate, we're going to go ahead and talk about the slow motion parts first. If you want to shoot in slow motion, set the frame rate of this part higher than whatever your base frame rate is. If you want to shoot in like what is like a time lapse feel, go ahead and set it below what your base frame rate is. And it'll give you like this time lapsey kind of feel. All right, now we have auto slow shutter. Shut this off. You don't want your shutter to be changed based off of what the camera thinks your lighting conditions should be. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. You're the artist, not the camera. You control what it does. It doesn't control what you do. All right, let's talk about Steady Shot. And Steady Shot is a tool I use all the time. Essentially what this does is compensate for your natural shake when you're filming handheld. And the reason I use this all the time is just kind of like smooth out some of those micro jitters that you may get. Now this is super helpful. I use it all the time. You don't really need it when you're doing like a tripod shoot like we're doing right now, but trust me, it's something that you want to have on. So as for custom settings, we'll come back to this in another video as well, because in that video, I'll be able to spend a little bit more time of breaking down where I have custom buttons set up and why. So I want to make sure I give a little bit more time to talk about that. All right, if you take nothing else from this video, please take this away. The auto power off temp, change it to high. Change it to high. Learn from my mistake and don't allow the camera to tell you it's overheating when it's not. Now, if you leave it at standard, it's likely that in the middle of a longer recording session, the camera will just decide, you know what, it's a little warm, I'm gonna shut down. And since I've made this change, I have not only never experienced my camera overheating, but I also no longer look like a fool in front of my client telling them that we have to pause the recording session because my camera is too hot. That was not fun. The last important setting that I think we should cover is the recording media settings. And here's how I have my camera set up. I have it set up to have one card that records only video and another card that records only for photos. However, if you want to set yours up to capture images or videos on both so that you have redundancy, you can do that. Or if you want to record one card and then when that card fills up, it starts recording on the other card, you can do that too. Now, that's just the way I have mine set up with the 1-in-1, but you can set it up however you like. Now, I know that was a lot of little details, so if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if this was helpful for you at any way, like just even a little bit, please make sure to let me know by liking the video. And as always, I gave you some tools to create. Now be great. Peace.